welcome to Hidden Gems. Today I'm here with Mark Schultz, who edits books. So would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself?
I would love to, Sarah. Thank you. I have been a reader all my life, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. Reading is a huge part of who I am and what I do. I learned to read before the first grade in primary school. I, I loved exploring the universe between the pages of a book because it was different every time. I always read beyond my grade level, and growing up on a small, non-working farm left me with a lot of time on my hands, and I had very few playmates. Books became my best friends. I read everything I could get my hands on. My mom's magazines, my dad's magazines, the dictionary, the encyclopedia. I got quite desperate at times. I think the early and broad exposure to many kinds of writing enhanced my sensitivity to words and spelling. I became aware of my ability to spot misspelled words in my college years. One of my early jobs was for a firm of consulting engineers. That was in the 70s. Yes, I'm a pretty old guy.
You don't look very old.
Thank you. Um, this was before personal computers and spell checkers became common. Documents and contracts were all typed by hand, and I was one of several proofreaders in the production department. I was the last one to be laid off. They really liked my work. And I began doing proofreading for other writers, starting with a friend of mine. And of course, he sent me carbon copies of his books that I marked up with my little red pen. Now, I not only proofread, I also promote books. As of the date of this interview, I have over 80 books I have proofread, including several screenplays. Spelling is pretty much the same, no matter where you go. I have 3 levels of proofreading. Every author except one chose my premium service, Complete Word Refining.
So what's the average fee that you charge all of this?
Well, my fee is based on 2 factors: the number of words in a document and the density of errors I find in a 3,000 word sample from the middle of the book. My top 2 levels of service have a sliding rate. The more errors, the higher the price. Most books price out at 1/2 cent to 6/10 of a cent per word for my premium service. Another way of putting that is 5 to 6 American dollars per 1,000 words.
So do you have a favourite genre you like to proofread?
I do. I have my personal favorite is science fiction, followed closely by fantasy. In fact, that is all I read for pleasure in the first half of my life. Now, I am a fan of good writing, regardless of the genre.
So have you edited any well-known books?
No, I haven't had the pleasure of proofreading a well-known book. I have clients in many different countries, and they are all independent authors, and many are self-publishers.
So an author has just finished their book and they can't afford an editor. What's the first thing they should do?
I'm going to address the whole writing and editing thing briefly, if that is okay with you, Sarah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Here is the process I recommend. After the first draft is done, the real fun begins. After a day or two, I recommend the author go through the book again for their first editing pass. Then, I recommend the author put the book away for at least 4 weeks. After that, they should pull it out and read it carefully with a critical eye, a second editing pass. The author will find a lot of things they want to change. When that is done, it's time to send it to an alpha reader or two. This needs to be people who the author trusts to give a clear and unvarnished opinion. It helps if they understand the writing process also. Then a third round of self-editing. Next, the beta readers. Bring on the beta readers. People who haven't seen the book yet. They don't have to know all the ins and outs of writing a book, because at this point the author wants to know how well it reads and what makes the reader stumble, whether it be plot holes or spelling errors. The author needs many fresh pairs of eyes. And this part of the sequence is followed by more careful self-editing. If the author has the time, put it away for a few weeks again. If they don't have the time, then I recommend they read it aloud or have the computer read it aloud to them. This verbal phase gets the book out of the author's head and engages a secondary sensory language process. If the author thinks it's ready to publish, then send it to the proofreader, somebody like me, the polisher of the author's beautiful words. Work through those suggestions, then it might be ready to publish.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, how do you go about finding better readers? Because it's quite hard to convince someone to read your book.
Yes, it can be difficult. Excuse me. I need a quick drink of water here. But I do have a solution for that.
Yeah.
A couple solutions. If the author knows, if the writer knows other people who write books, they can serve as beta readers also. You can also use family members. But there is a hazard there because they may be afraid of hurting your feelings and not tell you how they really feel about the book. Or they may minimize the problems that they encounter. Third possible solution is I have a very active presence on Twitter. I have over 39,000 people that follow me. And I have created a list of people who provide services to authors, including people who are willing to be beta readers. And that list is available for anybody to use at any time. You just have to look for someone who likes their kind of book, basically.
Okay. I'll look that up when I post the blog. I'll put a link to it.
Okay, that would be great.
So when editing, is there a routine you should follow, like focusing on dialogue first and then moving on to another area?
I don't follow a routine like that. I have a different system. I am not an editor in a large publishing house that might specialize in one particular aspect of a book. I am a proofreader that does some light editing also. My process is as follows. I make 3 passes through a book when proofreading. The first pass is at a slightly below normal reading speed. I am looking for the punctuation errors, missing words, multiple words, misspelled words, and misplaced words. These are the things that jump off the page at me. Now, I don't make any changes to a manuscript as I go along. I use the commenting feature of Microsoft Word to highlight the words and suggest solutions and improvements. I try very hard to preserve the voice of the author. It's their book. My second pass is the slowest of the 3. I use software that isolates the text one sentence at a time, and it offers suggestions, which I reject most of the time. My third pass is examining all of my suggestions in context and making sure my thoughts are communicated clearly.
So, do you have any tips for finding poorly written sentences so you can fix them?
I do, Sarah. My number one tip is fresh eyes. The eyes of other people, your alpha readers, your readers, and your own. That's why I recommend more than once to put the manuscript away periodically for a few weeks or a couple of months. That brings your eyes fresh onto the manuscript when you finally pick it up again. My second tip is reading aloud. Speaking the words can really expose things that detract from a smooth reading experience.
Editing software is great, but not perfect. So, how can an author quickly locate words that are spelled correctly according to spell check, but it's not the right word? Like, there instead of there. Are there any problems that appear in most books which authors should look for?
Great question, Sarah. Some self-education is necessary for this. Assuming the author is not an accomplished grammarian, and that would start by looking up lists of homophones. That can be very helpful because there are so many in the English language. These are the things that jump off the page at me. I suspect it is a combination of having read all of my life and the way my brain might be wired. Now, I have tested Grammarly and it combined. I have tested other software designed for writers and it partially failed also. You called out the very common homophones, there, and there. Another set that is extremely common is two, and two, and four, and four. There are many other sets of homophones built into the English language. I have blogged about many of these problems on my website. Writers can find my blogs at wordrefiner.com and they should look for the tab marked Words for Thought.
Okay, I will include a link to that on the blog so people can find it easily. Okay. How many edits on average should a book go through?
The answer is several, even 6 to 10. There are many variables for books that are large with complicated plots, and those could take even more sometimes. Things to consider are the length of the book, even the genre can make a difference, and the experience of the author. It takes a single person to write the first draft of any book. After that, there needs to be a dozen or 2 dozen people to complete the book and make it ready to publish. Besides your alpha and beta readers and your editor and proofreader, you've got things to work with like the cover, the layout of the book, in the book interior, and formatting the book for the various types of ebooks and paperback and so on. If an author can do all those things themselves, then they should open their own publishing house.
So, what's a reasonable timescale to allow for writing a book?
That's a hard question to answer. I have never asked writers how long they took to write their book. There are so many factors that impact the writing of a book. If the author is working full time, then their time is very limited, and it might take them 2, 3, or 4 years to actually write that book.
Thank you. So you shouldn't feel bad then if you've been working on one book for years and years. Then.
No, you don't need to feel bad about that. You just look towards the goal of getting it accomplished, getting it written. That's the important thing. Not everybody can be a full-time writer, even though most authors dream about that. That would be heaven for them.
I think the hardest thing to decide when you write a book is when is it finished? Have you edited it enough? How would you decide that?
That is a good question also. A lot of writers struggle with that. In fact, I have heard about writers who use that as an excuse to never finish the book. Oh, I need to make one more editing pass before it's really ready. Because they are afraid to put it out there. I think one of the things you have to go by is, does it read well? You know, it doesn't hurt to ask a favorite alpha or beta reader to look at the book again right before they send it to the publisher and give you their opinion of how well it reads. If it reads well for a couple of people, I think you can call it good and, and get it out there, along with the million other books that are published every year.
Thank you. So, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and I hope to speak to you again about editing.
I would love to do that anytime, Sarah.